straight. Don't get me wrong, it ain't all bad. I love the crazy fads, like England always buggering up. But you know we're gonna win the World Cup. I'm gonna start the old nation with myself for preservation. I'm gonna start the old nation with myself for preservation.
The red flag flying here.
And we start, and welcome listeners to another edition of Political Unmuted. It is so good to see you. Hello, thank you for coming. 33rd edition, and I've been telling you about the numbers as we've been going along. And of course, it's a third of a century. Well, not quite. It's almost a third of a century, so we're almost a third of a way there to 100. But I read as well that it is the master number. It resonates with the energies of compassion, blessings, inspiration, honesty, discipline, bravery, and courage. So take heart, people. It's a good number, and it's the number that tells us that all things are possible. How's about that? It's also the number of arsenic if you want to get rid of it. So there we go. And sort of welcome to the team. Paul, hello.
Hello.
Laura, hello.
Hello.
Sam, hello.
Hi.
Just before I come to our newcomer, I noticed that you've put in the chat, oh, by the way, everybody, we're going to try something different. We're going to try and involve your comments while we're talking. So it's going to be a chaos because we're going to spend the entire time looking this way, not at you. And sort of, I'm going to keep saying to people, and what do you think about that, Laura? And Laura's going to go, I wasn't listening. I was reading what you put. So if it's a disaster, we won't do it again. But it felt so good in the kind of after show chat last week as we sort of got chatting with people on the chat, and sort of we're going to try and see what it is. What on earth, Sam, are interweb pipes?
that was me with my millennial speak. Oh, we used to call them the interweb pipes back when I were a bairn.
Right. Okay,
Yes.
well, sort of thank you very much for a new word in our vocabulary. And sort of just before I stop talking, I'm going to say hello to Rochelle. Hiya. Thank you for joining us, standing in for Stuart, who's not very well at the moment. He had his injection and he's feeling better. You'll be watching, I'm quite sure. Hi, Stu, we're rooting for you. Get yourself better as soon as possible. The thing about being poorly because of your injection, it isn't that you're poorly, it's that your body has been sort of told that you're poorly, and it's practicing killing the coronavirus and sort of it's just having a go, and there's nothing else to have a go at. But the fact is that it means that when the real thing comes, you'll be able to suck it for 6. Rochelle, you're here to join us. Tell us about yourself. Who are you?
I am a teacher and an artist and sort of political enthusiast. I'm trying to get a lot of children in our school and like around across the community more interested in politics. So that's the type of thing that I'm into at the minute. So
are you a teacher in a school? I mean, this sounds a stupid question, but are you a teacher in a school? You actually work in a school?
Yeah, secondary school.
Well, I can't stand them under the age of 11. So they're sort of not fit to speak to. And secondary all my life. And do I get it that you teach art?
I teach art and DT, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And design technology. Oh, clever then. And tell us about something about your political interests.
I am a Durham County Council candidate for the upcoming elections, mainly because I've noticed that a lot of people that were reapplying, it was the same people and the same sort of things were getting around, and I realised that there was a lot of talk about, oh, if I could get on that council, I would do this, and if I could get on that council, and I would do that. And I thought, you know what, if I can get on that council, I can do that, so I'm going to get on that council.
Now, I'm sorry, everybody. I'm just going to take some time talking about this for obvious reasons, because it interests me. What kind of things do you want to get on the council to accomplish? You can accomplish amazing things as a county councillor. What kind of things would you be hoping to get involved in?
Lots of things to do with our younger generation. So we do at school, I teach, it used to be called PHSE, but it's called personal development. So it's all the social, moral, spiritual and cultural aspects of like students' life. So when they learn about money, when they learn about taxes, when they learn about where all that money comes from, where the taxes go. But we don't really talk about politics in a way where they have their own opinions, because they're normally family orientated, or they've been passed down from generations, and they don't have an opportunity to talk about things that other people talk about, because they're not usually involved in that type of thing. And we were talking a while ago, I can't remember if it was in the chat or not, and I was saying that I try and teach it where we don't have labels. So I'll say, you know, this government party said this government party said that, which one do you align with? And like, that's when people started to think, oh, well, actually, there are other things out there. So it's just really about teaching the kids that they don't always have to think what their mum and dad think. And there's other things available to them in the communities about making choices that affect them. That's what I'm really interested in.
These dangerous teachers helping children to think for themselves. Once when the timetable didn't work, I ended up as the only teacher available to teach the entire year group for 2 hours a week. So I taught all of year 11 1 hour a week, and all of year 10 1 hour a week, and all 150 of them I had to cram into my classroom. So we crammed 150 people, and they said, well, what are you going to teach them? So I taught them that kind of thing. We did how to use a checkbook and how to budget your money and all those things you were talking about there. And then a little bit to talk about what we believe about politics, of course, not indoctrinating. And it was tremendous fun. I wonder if any of the people watching remember those crammed in lessons where we sat like that. So anyway, time to stop talking to you. You're so welcome, and thank you for coming and sharing your ideas with us, and best of luck in that election. Moment of the week, who am I going to choose? Oh, Paul. It was going to be chaos today. Paul, you can start anyway. Moment of the week.
So this is a story that I'm sure someone will be able to share in the chat. Actually, looking at the chat, it's really, really vibrant tonight, and it's lovely to see so many people there and so many familiar names and unfamiliar names, and you're all really, really welcome. So this is about MI5 spying on trade unionists, basically. And it's the court case with Ricky Tomlinson, where Ricky Tomlinson was blacklisted for his trade union action. And it actually turns out that in court they read it out that MI5 had been used to spy on our own people. And really, is this a good use of the time of our spying agency? Is that a self-defense issue? Is that a national defence issue? Some people going on strike. It's pretty bleak. And the comment that I wanted to bring everyone's attention to is someone, Harry Cross, who's a friend of the channel, said, if you think that this doesn't happen now and we're so lucky that things have moved on so far from then, imagine what you were saying in 1972. So his idea was this sort of thing is probably still going on now. Maybe they don't need to surveil in a certain way. We've got the internet and everything. People might be watching this show right now. So, yeah, interesting.
Well, I mean, there might be people who are asking you to declare all the internet contact you have so they can go through it to see if you're going to be an embarrassment. That might actually be going on, mightn't it? Laura, moment of the week.
I think my moment of the week's got to be Boris Johnson not ruling out extending the school term into the summer and extending the school day so that kids can catch up with their learning. I mean, I, we all know how out of touch he is, but dear me, I happen to live with a teacher, and I can tell you something for nothing. Those holidays cannot come soon enough. I think teachers are actually working harder now than they ever did, because not only have they got to teach the children that are in school, they've got to sort out learning packs with kids at home, or they've got to try and sit and battle with teams all day, which is just a terrible application, and try and do online teaching as well. And it's just really frustrating that he thinks, oh, well, we'll just do a few extra weeks. That'll be fine. Those holidays are necessary. And not only that, really, every year it's sort of a zero-sum game, that the exams. You kind of, you don't beat anybody from last year. You're only against the people from this year. And they sort of pick a percentage of people who are going to pass or get an A or a B or a 1 or a 2 or whatever it is now. So really, everyone's going to be in the same boat anyway. So stop trying to punish kids and parents and teachers for something you messed up. Please, Boris. Thank you.
Rochelle, how do you feel about working during your summer holidays after, of course, this great lazy long time you've had sort of during the coronavirus?
Oh, I can't wait. I tell you what Laura said there, like I teach online and I've got 2 kids at home and I'm trying to potty train one of them. So between muting myself and getting the toilet roll, it is just crazy. And it's the thing of like, you have this professional responsibility to do your job and you want to do it and you want to do it so well, but at the same time you're just trying to potty train your kid, which is something that you should be able to do so naturally and like have time for. And Boris hasn't got a clue. I bet he's not trying to potty train anyone. I bet we could run, I tell you what, the upskilling we've been doing, teachers, like we could run Downing Street on Teams. He doesn't even have to attend. It's good for fun.
So one of the things I've noticed today is, of course, there's a whole year group of children out there who are not experiencing that joy of sitting in a classroom watching the snow coming down, praying, dear God, make it snow more so we have to be sent home. That is a school experience that everybody has had, looking out the window and saying, oh, just please snow a little bit more. Of course, it's been taken away from children. Now, to make them go to school longer, the children don't want to do that. They want to go to school less. Samantha, moment of the week.
Well, Shildon, as you all know, I'm a town councillor in Shildon, and Shildon was on the national television this week. We were featured on the Jeremy Vine show on Channel 5 as an example of an extremely deprived town. Who were probably going to have higher coronavirus casualties, so maybe we should get more vaccine, which was an experience. I got a message off a random person I don't even know, and then we had a discussion about it, and it turned out we totally had different takes on the situation. She was horrified that Shildon's name was being blackened in this way. And I tried to explain to her that we are, Shildon skirts between 30th and 10th, most deprived in the country on the indices of deprivation, depending on where you live in Shildon. I was trying to explain how that's a real thing, but we couldn't see the same. Anyway, so it's great to have some national press. I would like it to be about our National Railway Museum or our fantastic history or all of the other things we've got going on. It is a shame. We do tend to be used for poverty porn, which is depressing, but that's the state of the media at the moment.
Yes, and a telling fact that you also have one of the best organisations in the county set up to help people who are very poor and who are in trouble. Children Alive is absolutely a national exemplar of such an organisation. That's telling. Just before I forget, we're getting one or two people putting in questions. There's somebody said, what do we think about the coal mine over in Westmoreland, which is an absolute thing. And then another question which I've forgotten. Oh yes, what's your thought on a jail sentence? We can't change our discussion. We know what we're going to discuss. Sort of the thing is remember them, and then when I ask the questions for next week, shove them in, and we'll put those into the pot for next week's discussion. What we're wanting you to use chat for is to make comments on what we're saying as we're going along. So, for instance, you know, what thoughts are you? Sort of, is it a good thing or a bad thing for an area like Shildon when we get sort of nationally portrayed as being very poor, as being very deprived? Sort of, does that help or hinder? Rochelle, moment of the week for you.
My moment of the week is, it's the last week before half term, and we've been online learning for so long, and I got one of the best pieces of work from one of my year 11s last night, like late, shouldn't have been working on it probably, but they're still churning it out, and like that's my positive. Like, even when I think I'm having a terrible week and I get some work in from the kids, I think at least they're still doing it, and they're still doing it like really well.
So I mean, how are you teaching art online? I mean, how does that work?
We have, like, they're called visualizers, so we have cameras that sort of go up and then they point down, you know, like an overhead projector, like an old school overhead projector, but a digital one, and we'll do like demos with them, or you can join Teams on your phone and on your laptop, and you can hold your phone as like a secondary camera and draw with it. Like, there's loads of tips that you can will together to try and teach them how to do something. So,
and how do they submit their work to you? Do they just take a screenshot and is it on? Do they do it on the computer, or do they do it on paper and then try and scan it? I mean, how does that work?
We've taught them loads of different ways. So you can take a photo on your phone and attach it as an email. You could take a photo on your phone and drop it into the Teams chat. We've got files set up so each individual child knows how to go into their folder in Teams and access their own PowerPoints. They know how to insert pictures into PowerPoints into Teams. And we've been trying to teach this alongside the usual curriculum that Boris is still pushing. So it is madness, but they're doing it, and they're doing it really well.
Yeah, they catch on quick. And the other thing is, it's all skills which come in useful. Sam, I've seen there's loads of comments coming in about teaching. Is there anything, anybody that you've noticed in the chat that we need to bring up before we go on?
Yeah, just well done to Tim's wife. Tim says he's also lives with a teacher, and she's working right now after being in the class all day. I remember that. I am an ex-teacher. I'm not a teacher anymore because I'm not interested in that rubbish. Mark says, I almost called him Rat. Sorry, Mark. Mark said, is the government going to pay school staff more for expecting them to work longer into summer holidays? Do they expect us to work for free? Yes, probably is the answer to that one. I mean, they would say you'll be working anyway, which you probably would be, but it's very different doing all your prep at home than it is managing a whole class. Yeah.
A lot of love for the teachers. Wow, yeah. School was never as creative as I remember. It's completely different skill set. Good on you, teachers. When I started teaching, so there's an awful lot of close exercise, gap filling, just hour after hour after hour, and in copying from the textbook and things like that. So well done, you teachers. Right, okay, end of this.
Now it's time for the big story.
And the big story today is transgender athletes. Well, it was mentioned in the previous show, and we got an awful lot of comeback about it. And so we decided that it's going to be the big story today. And the start question is, how can transgender athletes be included fairly in mainstream sport? Sam, kick us off.
Yeah, so I want to start by just covering some basic things that not going to happen here and what what is going to happen here, you know, and also kind of my rationality for agreeing to have this discussion, because trans people's right to participate in life is not up for discussion, and we all on this panel, we agree trans people exist. They are not for debate. They are not. We want to include them in society, and we want to be part of that change that makes that happen. I was very cautious about doing this because we're a group of cis people around this table having this discussion, and I don't think it's right to have a discussion without, like, it should be a discussion led by trans people. But at the same time, trans people are not a sideshow to be wheeled out and displayed in a way that debases them and objectifies them. So what I will say is feedback is welcome. Anybody who is transgender who wants to have a platform to talk about this, please get in touch with Socialist Think Tank, and I'm sure we will provide you with that platform in a way that you're not provided with that platform through mainstream media. We are participating in this discussion in good faith, and one of the reasons I decided in the end I did want to discuss this was because this is something that is being discussed infinitely amongst people who are hostile towards trans people, and I don't think it helps us not to talk about it in a rational and inclusive way. We need to share what we believe to empower other people to go into these discussions with arguments. So I have been doing my research, and what is really interesting is that a lot of people's arguments about including trans people in sport is based on really obvious things that actually, when you drill down into them, they're not based in science. So the Olympic organization, whatever you call them, the people who run the Olympics are allowing trans people into the Olympics with the actual identity, which is great. And the way that they are coming at it is, I think, people who are transitioning as into a woman, they needed to have been on treatment to minimize the impact of the testosterone for 2 years. So every different sport has different things they need to take into account. So I think it's really important for those sporting bodies to make those decisions based on science and not based on, really, like I said, really things that people say are obvious that aren't obvious. So one of the examples given is that a person who has a physically smaller frame is more likely to get injured in, like, rugby, but there's no science to indicate that's the truth. There's no evidence. Another thing I want to really bring up is when we're talking about mitigating the advantages for somebody who was born as a boy who then grows up and transitions into a woman, we need to look at how we enable these people to transition in a way that is ethical towards them and also helps them live their life longer term the way that they want to. So one of the problems we have at the moment is that puberty blockers have more or less been banned from this December. If you've got a child under the age of 16 who wants to halt their puberty, they now need to get a court order to do so. What I'm saying is we need to give these people the treatment they need so that these things don't become an issue. You know, if you can halt somebody's puberty, they then don't get the same level of advantage that going through male puberty would as a female athlete. So I just think we need to take a really broad scientific view of this issue and not go off. I don't want to say hysterical, because hysterical is a sort of sexist term as well, isn't it? But we need to be based in science, not feelings. And the science at the moment supports the idea that trans women can participate in female sport, and they're not automatically going to totally eradicate women off the podium.
Thank you. And really, some ideas there that I hadn't really. It's so easy just to speak, isn't it, from your prejudices and from your how your opinions, and sort of bringing the fact that there's stuff going on there at a much more detailed scientific level. Laura, how do you feel about the issue?
I'm finding this one particularly difficult, simply because I don't have those lived experiences, and I would want to come at this from a socialist position and a humanitarian position, where I strongly believe that people are who they feel they are and who they say they are, and we should just allow them to do that and not get in about anybody's business. But I do understand the difficulties of, if for example, I was in a bike race and Paul decided he wanted to be in the women's race, and he was transitioning, or at least just starting that. Is he then allowed to just immediately be in that group? Because he'd kick me ass. He really would. But then I don't know fully my position on this in terms of, as Samantha was saying, the scientific side of it, or what should be allowed and what shouldn't be allowed. It's really complicated and really difficult, and it would just be really lovely if everyone could just get on. And maybe there shouldn't be gendered sports. Maybe they should all just be sports. But then there's the question for disadvantage to some people. It's really tough. It is really tough. And I just I think sort of making people take medication against their will is bad. Like I'll get her name wrong. What's her name? Paul knows her. Thank you.
Sorry, no one will have heard that. Caster Semenya.
Okay, thank you. That whole situation I thought was just horrendous. If you want to do this sport, you're going to have to change your body's makeup, even though you don't want to. That was really barbaric, I thought. So it's multi-layered, this. I think we just need to always bear in mind that, trans women are women, trans men are men, and whatever we can do to support that and get around these issues in a sensible way that isn't bringing in hatred or sort of arguments that just don't make any sense and don't matter, and like you say, personal prejudices, then that's the way forward. But we need to be having those sensible conversations with, the people who make these decisions, I think.
I mean, personally, I think what happened to that young lady, that's nothing to do with what we're talking about. That was just absolute persecution of a human being because of who they were. There was never any doubt about her identity as a female. It was,
well, there shouldn't be any doubts about a trans woman's identity as a female. So it's sort of the same thing.
This was someone who was a female, and that poor girl, it was outrageous. Sort of, this is just a comment here from Ray Goodspeed. I think referring to, Samantha, your comment that they're not allowing puberty blockers. You've got to go to court. And he says that's a scandalous legal decision, simply barbaric. Yeah. Sort of, Rochelle, what's your opinions on this?
Widely, and I'm not talking about my school or my students or anything like that. From a teacher that speaks to other teachers and talks about gender and young people, and we have LGBTQ days and we have gay pride assemblies, and we try and be inclusive as we possibly can. If we're talking about sports and transgendered kids, what I don't agree with is then having kids who are uncomfortable telling their peers that they're trans. I know of students that have come to schools as transitioning, and then, sports day rolls around and there's boys and girls teams, and then there's questions raised on all accounts. And I think putting a child under that stress and saying you can't, you know, have these hormones and you have to wait until you're over 16 and you have to abide by all of these rules. Well, in actual fact, these kids have got more of a handle on it than some adults that I know. They're so much more understanding of each other. They don't hold prejudice against each other. It's just the people who have a warped sense of what the kids want when they haven't asked the kids what they want.
Thank you very much. Paul?
So I need to thank a few people for their input on this. Leanne Powell gave me some really good reading information on this, which has helped me understand it a little bit further. Mia Mantry has discussed this with me at length as well. Anne Willis discussed this with me at length. She was actually bringing up the fact that sport is often categorized, and I thought that was a really interesting thing. Like, you wouldn't put a 7-stone boxer up against a heavyweight, you know, and that's quite an interesting way to go about it. Like, could sports be categorized in a different way? That is something that happens in sport. Sport is categorized into men's sport and women's sport, and that is for a reason. Because, like, there are some sports that, and it's not all sports, by the way, that men are better at. Women are better at some sports, particularly very long distance sports. They're incredible at it. You know, like, so the race across America on a bike is usually won by a woman. But if we consider everything that's going on, I understand where people are coming from, where they worry about people competing because of things like size differences, weight differences, and in the way someone would in boxing. I think back to one of my own experiences. I was a mediocre cyclist at best. I competed in the national championships as a junior, and I beat, it was a time trial, I beat Nicole Cook, I think. She went on to win, like, Olympic gold and stuff like that. She's a bit younger than me, though, by the way, and she's way, way better than I ever could be. At her best, she was better than I was at my best, so I'm not saying I'm better than a woman athlete, by the way. But at that time, like, you know, it's whether you make that decision. Men do have certain, like, kind of advantages with regards to muscle bulk, really. So I think when people bring up these claims, they are bringing them up from a genuine place, and we certainly should never dismiss those concerns that people have. And that's why this kind of debate, where we're being nice about it and where we don't have an agenda, what we can see is a lot of the time there's an anti-trans agenda when they bring these things up. For example, this was one that I was going to bring up as a negative because I'd read it before. There's a female veterans world champion cyclist who had transitioned to a woman recently, and she won the world championships on the cycling track, and she had previously competed as a male athlete, but at a much lower level, not a particularly high level. But she was being beaten by the other women athletes in those races. It was spread around that she wasn't taking hormone replacement therapy or wasn't having testosterone suppressants when she was, and she was misgendered and treated absolutely appallingly. And she was like, "Look, I won one race. I got beaten in 5 of the other races, and no one said anything when I got beaten. But everyone said something when I won, and there were women dropping out of the race and saying they wouldn't compete and stuff." I think there are medical experts who know more about this than me, a lot more about this than me, and any of us on this panel. I think our place is to have that understanding of people saying, actually, I've trained my whole life, and then someone comes along and transitions to a different gender, and then can win that race. Like, no one has any right to win a sports event as well. This is a funny thing. You've got a right to be whoever you want to be. But, like, if I wanted to be a better athlete than I am, sorry, I'm just me. You know, these are genetic differences. Genetic differences should be celebrated. However, we have categorized sport. We need to think about these things. So I think I'm coming across as really on the fence here. I'm trying to be understanding of everyone. I think this is one of those situations where we absolutely 100% agree with everyone's right. Trans women are women, trans men are men, non-binary people are non-binary. That's it. I'm not arguing with that at all. We need to understand that there will be different viewpoints, but sport isn't necessarily fair. For example, even if people argue that people should be able to take drugs, and Lance Armstrong, etc., if everyone was taking drugs, then it was fine that he won. He gained a significant advantage because of the type of drug that the type of drug he took filled in his weakness, whereas a lot of people who were already good at that didn't get the same advantage because that was the popular drug at the time. It's a really interesting thing. Did he still win 7 Tours de France? I think he did. I always say that he always won those. He did. He lived through it. He did all those things. He trained really, really hard. He did those things. And I know I've strayed off course a little bit there, but it's just such a complicated thing in sport. Like, no one has the particular right to win, and who's to say there's so many different chromosomal differences. People could be tested, they could be XX, they could be XY, and they could be a mixture of all those things. There are all sorts of different chromosomal things that you can be. It isn't cut and dried. It isn't male and female and that's it. There are all sorts of complications, and that's what the scientists are telling us around this.
Thank you. We are running out of time. There have just been some really good comments, and thank you so much. So Leanne Powell and Ray Goodspeed basically talking about the fact that transgendering is a very rare thing anyway, and then when we translate this into the number of people who are going to be super athletes, you're talking about something which is Ray Goodspeed said a storm in a teacup. I don't know whether I'm saying that about it. It certainly is a thing that needs considering. But the fact of the matter is it's very rare. And then what Paul said there, sport is naturally unfair. Somebody wins. Somebody whose name I don't know, I can't pronounce, Debashisti. Sorry if I've got that wrong. But what's this thing about competition anyway? Have I the right to sort of demand that sort of everybody in the athletics in sort of Olympics sort of is 68 and sort of slow, and so everybody's as bad as I am, so I've got an equal chance of winning in the sprint race, and really interesting. Thank you so much. Right, I'm going to move on. Other questions? We do miss you, Stuart, with your short summaries, which absolutely sort everything out. Stuart Alexander Sutherland, sports regulatory bodies should recognise sports as an educational tool in the fight for equality. So thank you, Stuart. Well done. Okay, we have three questions and no time to discuss them all. Paul, why are Labour trying to reclaim the flag? Is it the right strategy?
Labour has a long and complicated relationship with the British flag, and it's a really strange thing. If we can look at the superficial level of it, basically the Labour Party have decided that they will put a flag in the background of all their shots. Then Boris Johnson decided, well, I'm going to put my flag up, I'll put 2 up, and I'll put 2 flags up. And then all the Tory ministers have got different flags behind them, and someone's like, who has a flag in the house? I don't have a flag in my. Well, you do, John. You got a flag. I've got a few banners. Yeah, it's a nice flag to have, John. It's a nice one.
I've had this behind me for years.
but they've all got, and they've got flagpoles and everything. They've got these weird things, and it seems to be a lot of people are saying it's simply a gesture because of, and I believe this is down to the way people portrayed Jeremy Corbyn as being unpatriotic, because apparently patriotism is waving a flag around, and it isn't being proud of your own working class communities or anything like that. You can be completely patriotic by being proud of the things that British people have achieved, without thinking other nations couldn't have achieved those. You can be really, really proud of things. And I think that's what people want from patriotism. They want to be proud of achievements. So you've mentioned Ray a few times in the speech, Ray Goodspeed. Ray Goodspeed is like one of the inspirations for the film Pride. He's watching our show now. I'm interviewing him tomorrow. I'm very excited about this, by the way. And I'll see you tomorrow, Ray. But, you know, hey, is that not something to be hugely, hugely proud of? The fact that you know, they influenced gay rights probably throughout the world, because you know, in the UK, a lot of the time, if one country does something, another country starts to do it, and you know, it wasn't even on the agenda. Even on the left, there was so much homophobia that went on, and they took it on and they fought it. And I'm proud of that, and I'm proud that I'm part of a country that can do that. I'm proud of them. I'm not saying that means Britain's better than anyone else, but I'm really proud of our achievements. Should I be sticking a flag behind me to say that? No, God no. Why would I be doing that? Why would I think that? And a lot of people are kind of just taking the mick and saying it's gesture politics. The interesting thing for me as well is if you look at the use of flags, if you go back to the beginning, the founding of the Labour Party, when Labour got its first government, when at conference, there were so many people furious that at conference they flew the Great British flag. So many, because they saw it as a sign of imperialism. And so many people see that Great British flag as something not to be proud of. And I'm not saying this is right, or I'm not saying this is wrong, but think of people, you know, who experienced Bloody Sunday, for example, when the British government, you know, essentially shot its own people, it shot its own citizens. Now, is that something to be proud of? Is it something to be proud of the way, you know, we invented concentration camps? There is a rich and checkered history to the Union flag, and I'm not saying I'm against it or anything like that. If people want to wave it, then absolutely brilliant. But symbols mean different things to different people. We know that this is very important to the Conservative Party, because they published that list of symbols that could be considered to be terrorist, and they put St Pauli Football Club on there and Greenpeace and all these things alongside swastikas. You know, they think this is important, and I think this is what they call a culture war. They're trying to say our culture is better than your culture, and I'm not really. I'm quite into symbols in a way, but not in this way, not for gesture politics.
Thank you, Paul. Rochelle, is this just the thin end of a nationalist, chauvinist wedge?
You know what it feels like? You know, when you go and open a Christmas cracker and you've got the worst toy, like, and it drops out, like, there must have been better ideas. There must have been, did they run out of money and just think, I know what we'll do. We'll give everybody a flag, give them specific orders, and then it'll just boost everybody's ability to believe in us again. Like, I don't know, it's an odd one. It's an odd choice. I would like to see the reasoning behind it. I'd like to see someone admit it.
Well, I think the reasoning is that we've become tarred with the idea that we're anti-British, that we're pro-terrorist, that we sort of hate our country, and sort of and it's an attempt to change the public perception of that by showing how much we love our country. I mean, is that a bad thing?
I don't think it's a bad thing, but I mean, you could throw a symbol out, or you could actually go and speak to people. Like, one of them takes time and the other one doesn't, and they've just chose the easy route, haven't they?
Sort of. Laura, is it? I mean, do you think that this is antagonistic towards certain communities? Is this going to lose us support in various communities?
Well, I think, to be cynical for a minute, I think one of the main reasons they are using it is to win back communities that we lost because we didn't have it. I think it has sort of the Union flag has sort of become a symbol of nationalism rather than patriotism. Now, if Keir Starmer's idea is to use it to bring back patriotism, brilliant, that's great, lovely. I love patriotism. Everybody should. Fantastic. If we do it right, if we are patriotic because we are celebrating the multicultural landscape that is our entire United Kingdom. And if we're there's this conversation about him wanting people to feel belonging. Okay, well, if you want people to feel belonging, that includes the migrants who are coming here, refugees who need help, everybody who belongs here because they need help. They're also people who feel belonging. BAME communities who get left behind and who get shoved in the worst type of building that will literally burn down around them. They don't feel belonging, and I'm sure they don't look at this flag and go, oh, it's okay then, everything's going to be all right because we're patriotic. Well, no, we've got to be, you show your patriotism by looking after everybody. I'm starting to see less of, well, obviously with the Tories, we've seen less and less of that over the last 11 years. It's been horrendous how much the poor communities have gotten poorer. Devastatingly so. We speak about it every week. Everybody knows my feelings on this. But to then use that symbol to sort of win the argument without backing it up with anything feels, oh my God, I'm going to say it, disingenuous. Sorry, Paul. It really does, though. You've got to back it up with actions. What is Kia? You tell me what patriotism is to you. If it is standing in a nice posh suit in front of a flag, it's not the type of patriotism I feel, and we need more. So hopefully he'll do something wonderful with it, and he'll start going out into communities, and we'll start bringing back the UK that we could be. Let's see.
Could I ask the guests a question? Could I ask the listeners a question? And see if they know. Who was the first Prime Minister to routinely have the Union Jack behind them when they were making an address?
Well, we'll give you time to answer that question. I was just about to say, Paul, there's some really good comments about this. Jeremy Corbyn's quote on patriotism, Mark Langley, patriotism is about supporting each other, not attacking somebody else. Somebody else, it's disappeared off the bottom and I can't get it back, saying it's not about being superior to anybody else at all. Musa, it's about love. I really thought that was a good one. Mark Rattigan, I'm okay with governments using flags. The symbol needs to represent every single citizen. That was your point, Laura. Absolutely too. Vonnie Hardman loves the Pride Progress flag. She loves the banners, the miners' banners, when they're inclusive and they're building up a sense of inclusivity. Some fabulous things. Final comment, Sam.
So I am, oh no, you can't see because of my light. There you go. I am everywhere with a flag. I think what it's about is about like doing it for the right reasons, right? So I marched around Durham Miners Gala with a massive Union Jack because the year before a group of racists had made this lie on social media that had gone viral that the Union flag was not allowed at the Durham Miners Gala, and that people were being thrown out for flying it. So I wanted to make that point, but also I do very happily take it, and I'm proud to be seen with it. Because I've not been told to by a focus group. I think the problem is when you're doing it because you're trying to deal with negative polls on your patriotism because a focus group told you to, that people know that, people can see that, people can feel the fakeness of it. And it's exactly like when him and Angela Rayner posted that picture of them both taking a knee for Black Lives Matter. Like, everybody who was on board with Black Lives Matter movement looked at it and was just like, oh, this is so staged and sterile and unfeeling and unmoving, and it's not what we want. What we want is genuine feeling, genuine pride in our country, which comes from wanting to make it, like Laura was saying, the best country for everyone to live in, and not shying away from the fact that that includes people that may have been born in different countries who want to come here for whatever reason. Just not doing it for the wrong reasons. I just think people can really feel that authenticity And we are calling out for authenticity. That's why people like Trump got elected, because they were seen as more authentic and more real, you know. So, yeah, have a flag, be happy with it. It is our country's flag. You would expect our Prime Minister or anybody wanting to be our Prime Minister to feel comfortable next to it, but for the real reasons.
Me man Tree is fed up that it's been hijacked by the far right.
Exactly.
So maybe
100%.
we just need to take it back. Thank you so much. Fabulous comments on the chat. It's the first time I managed to follow the chat and I'm going to change the order, everybody. Laura, I don't want any sulking here, please. You are very precious to us, but we're going to have to rush the last question. So I'm going to bring Rochelle in because she's the guest and I don't want to be rude to Rochelle. Rochelle, do we need more people like Jackie Weaver?
Oh, we've got a clip.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that.
Be assured that we won't be thrown out of the meeting like we were last time.
As long as we have reasonable behaviour from everyone, no one would be excluded from the meeting.
I was thrown out of the meeting. So was Councillor So was Councillor Brewerton. Please let the chair.
Mrs. Weaver, please. If you disrupt this meeting, I will have to remove you from it. You can't.
It's only the chairman who can remove people from a meeting. You have no authority here, Jackie Weaver. No authority at all.
She's just kicked him out. That's right. No, don't. She's kicked him out. Don't.
This is a meeting called by two councillors.
Illegally?
They now elect a chairman.
No, they can't because the vice chair's here. I take charge. Read the standing orders. Read them and understand them.
God.
So now everybody who's a councillor, you see the importance of the rule that you should mute your microphones in a meeting until you're called to speak. Rochelle, what's your take on all this?
Wow, like there's so much going on in one. You could pick that apart forever, couldn't you? I think really there's so much going on in there. So first of all, there's obviously some sort of power struggle between, you know, Jackie Weaver, and I don't know if you know the backstory, but she was brought in. She's actually higher up the ranks than everybody there. She's there as like mediator to try and pull together the council meetings that they've never had a council meeting for about 6 months. You know, the one time they did have one, it went absolute disaster. They were shouting over each other. Legalities got in the way, and the chair was, you know, having his own conversations with other people. Anyway, Jackie's been brought in as like mediator, and I think straight away there's a power struggle. There's a sexist power struggle. You know, I followed the story only because I liked the way that Jackie Weaver handled it. And you know, one of the things she said was in all of our interviews, she said, we're all good and well being on Zoom, and it's hilarious that, you know, I've watched the meeting back and it is funny, like some of the expletives that were in there, like under their breath, you know, one of them went to the toilet in the meeting, one of them answered the door in the meeting, one of them answered their phone, you know, can I ring you back?
I'm in a meeting.
Yeah, I'm just in a meeting, I'll ring you back. And like some of it is funny, but the one thing she said was, I would not have been comfortable in that meeting had it have been in real life, with the way that those men were treating her. And I do think that that level of like sexism, I know I said before you could pick it apart until you talked about every single flaw, but I do think that if that was real life and we were talking about meetings and that was happening, would you get away with it because you were the chair? Would you get away with it because you were the hierarchy? Would you get away with it? And I think that's something to talk about. But the fact that these town council meetings are now online, and the fact that people are taking an interest in them, like who knew things like that were going on? We do, because we show an active interest, and we, you know, I often log into my town council meetings just to have a look, like why not? But people don't know that. People don't know that you can request to join into your town council Zoom. Like you can ring the clerk and say, oh, can I have the link? Like you can do that as a as a citizen of that town, if you wanted to do that, you can find out now when your next meeting is and be a part of it. And I'm just glad that something like this is highlighted and it's made other people talk about it. You know, yes, it's gone viral for all the wrong reasons, really, but I think it has a positive outlook that people are talking about it and things do happen at that level and decisions are made. And if people do take an interest, it might get more people involved in making those decisions. I don't know. And if people are like Jackie Weaver or things like strong decision makers and stand up for what they believe in, then I think we do need more Jackie Weavers in the world. Actually, I don't know if you know this, but I was reading an article by a woman called Gabby Hinsliff. I think I wrote her name down. And someone had said to her, a particular MP had said, they were really happy that their constituency meetings had been moved online because there was less arguments and people were less likely to start things because they were putting themselves on mute and because they were using the system that was put in place. But I think that's only worked because people were in place like Jackie Weaver to keep the order of the meeting by using the mute and by using the hand up and by making people follow the rules of the meeting. So I think it could be really good. But I also think things like that can be just Handforth Parish. Like, it's mad. I have watched that video so many times, and every time I watch it, it gets worse.
Some fabulous comments on here. Some people saying that the chair, the vice chair was right. That sort of the chair is the chair. I don't think it was ever explained by what right Jackie Weaver was controlling the council, and so I think there were interesting things going on there. But sort of generally, everybody thinking that here we have this is misogyny and aggression and bullying and trolling going on, and a complete failure of discipline. Laura, is it a good thing that this has gone online, or is the danger that everybody thinks that sort of Wingate Parish Council is like that too? I mean, is this a disaster for sort of proper local democracy?
I think not. I think it is a really good idea, and I'm glad it has come to light. I've been in meetings like that myself and have been spoken to like that, and it wasn't recorded for anybody else to see. And I went back, but it wasn't easy. And I mean, regardless of who was right or wrong, I happen to think that they were right, and she didn't have any authority to do what she did, but she did handle herself really well, and they handled themselves so poorly, and it was completely out of order. The behaviour was just shocking. Like I say, I've witnessed it, I've seen it, but I think for me, what it really highlights is how passionate people get about the local issues that affect them. You know, this is a parish council and they're all seething. They want things done right. People are into politics at a local level. You've just got to find them. And I think it's actually quite refreshing to see that people who spend, I mean, these people, you don't get paid for doing stuff like that. It's something that you're passionate about and you care about and you want done right. And I thought it was really interesting to see that side of it, and to allow other people to see how heated these things can get, because they do at every level of government that I've experienced. Anyway, I can't speak for the higher echelons that I'm not allowed to go to. But yeah, it was. I mean, I agree with everything Rochelle said. You know, there was absolute misogyny on display there. It was sexist. It was aggressive. It was out of order. But also, it was sort of really interesting and a bit sort of heartwarming that actually people do care. Maybe people should read the standing orders and understand them before they go into these meetings.
Never harms. A number of people saying that she was brought in as a moderator because of previous things. Somebody from the parish next door wrote to me and said that the council was in special measures, but I'd still want to know by quo warranto, by what right, and ultimately you can't have rules unless they're based on proper democratic things, on the standing orders. Very briefly, we're out of time, and we've got another topic. Sam, quickly, a comment?
Yeah, one thing I did see is I did see an interview with Jackie Weaver. Wow, how going viral on the internet can change your life. She's been the hottest property in the media, hasn't she? I did see an interview with her where she did say, you know, I hope that people of my age and Rochelle's age look at this and say, basically, why are all of these old men sat around this table? Why aren't people like us represented there? And let's get involved. And that is very much the case, as you know, John. Not saying anything about you and your age, but the average age of councillors is past working age, and I just think hopefully yes, hopefully people have watched that and thought, I'm going to get involved in that because those people don't represent me and I could do a better job.
Paul?
No.
Thank you.
Just to add on, I think if what Samantha was saying there's a system problem there, isn't there? Because they were right. The chair does have the authority to throw people out. Jackie Weaver doesn't. That is true. And, you know, that aggressive attitude, he's probably wound up because she wasn't following the standing orders. Who isn't really, like, who's never been to a parish council meeting or a Labour Party meeting or something like that, even knows what standing orders are. You know, there's this arcane kind of language that people don't understand, and it really puts people off. And even in like Labour Party meetings, I try to make them as informal as possible. And there's all this, like, there's a lot of people like, this and that. No, this was, you know, that's out of order. And, you know, what's the thing they always say? Point of order. And it's like, what do you mean? Oh, I think the rules have been broken. Right, they haven't. You know, that happens quite a lot, doesn't it? Like, you know, like that happened in my first ever meeting that I chaired. It was like, someone's to a point of order, you need to stand down. And I was like, what rule have I broken? And he just sat down, and then it was a much better meeting after that. So, you know, that little bit of knowledge, it's all about learning about what these weird words and weird terms mean, because they don't mean anything complicated, but they really do put people off, and especially people who aren't confident in their own ability to just say, sorry, I don't understand that. And that's usually the people who've struggled all the way through education because they've been really scared to ask. So maybe we need to move forward and not have these arcane things. Like, if I ever, I don't think I ever will, but if I ever got to Parliament or something, I think I would like to just speak in normal terms and just keep getting kicked out. No, I'm going to speak like my constituents do. That's how I'm going to do it. I'm not going to follow, the right honourable gentleman for this and that and that and that. It puts people off. We need to be normal human beings. That's what I think.
Thank you very much indeed. I had a point and it's completely gone out of my head. That I told you to fall to pieces when I was trying to do two things at once. Okay, very briefly, we're over time by 5 minutes. This is because we kept referring to what other people were saying, and I think it's been the better for it. If you hated this thing where we kept drawing attention to the things that you said, tell us. We'll stop doing it. But if you've liked it, tell us, and we'll continue doing it. So very briefly, Laura and really everybody, I'm just going to shut you up after a few sentences. You I'm the chair, and read the standing orders. And Laura, are we working from home or are we living at work?
Poor Laura's frozen.
Oh, Laura.
Shall we play No Pass Around and then pick it up there?
Let's
get her back around. Let's do that. Let's do that, and we'll pick her up straight after this, because she has. It's a nice way to have frozen. At least she wasn't going like this or something like that. But
Let's say goodbye. We're bringing the first half of the show to an end. Everybody, thank you for watching us. God bless you. We were going into the second half, but we're going to kick off with Laura. We play No Pass Around. I'm going to get myself a drink. You don't have to watch if you don't want. And we'll see you next week. Otherwise, this is the first half goodbye to people who are leaving us now. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you very much.
My name is Jack Atkinson. I'm not afraid.
and I live and die by this vow that I've made. The only good fascist's a dead one, they say, and around here we are. When I first left all them months ago, I told him I'd come not to kill but to cure. Well, for an ambulance driver my shot's pretty sure. Panorama, here we are. There'll be no passaran, no passaran, no passaran today. The fascists have come for our freedom, and we ain't gonna give it away. There'll be no passaran here today. I told my mother, now mother be strong, for the left way is right and the right way is wrong. And you can stick that on my grave when I'm gone, for I'm here we are. There'll be no passaran, no passaran, no passaran today. Fascists have come for our freedom, we ain't gonna give it away. There'll be no passaran here today. The cast may be cast, and the cast may be cast, but you armies of darkness, you best do your worst. 'Cause to win, yeah, well, you gotta get past those first. And around here we are. There'll be no passaran, no passaran, no passaran today. The fascists have come for our freedom, and we ain't gonna give it away. There'll be no passaran here, no passaran, no passaran, no passaran today. No passaran, no passaran, no passaran today. No passaran, no passaran, no passaran today. The fascists have come for our freedom, and we ain't gonna give it away. There'll be no passaran here today.
We are back, John.
Hi everyone. Hi, Laura.
Hi. Sorry
We've also
about
got a
that.
comment box, by the way, so we can see different comments if I scroll about. So if there's any comment you want to highlight, I'll have a little look for it. We've got some comments on the screen at the moment, so as you type, your comments will appear on the screen. We're trying something new. So
Ooh, that's fancy.
it is a bit fancy, but it's also a bit risky. So you know.
I don't know. You'll be able to throw them out of the meeting, won't you?
I don't know.
I'll just
Have
go
you
back
read
to the other
standing
thing.
orders?
Laura, sort of what we. I've got some things to sort of. I've got some things to say about that last thing we were talking about before we move on. I really do feel that we must not, just because we have a few nasty old men in one meeting, I just feel that it is absolutely wrong that we should devalue the service of literally tens and hundreds of thousands of loyal male and female counsellors, sort of who may be older in years, but they have immense wisdom, knowledge, and experience that they apply, usually free or for a pittance, to the help of their community. And one thing I'd like to say is we must not let one council tar all older councillors, sort of many of whom need a medal, with because it plays to that foul agenda that we need to just sweep them all out and start again. That's often not what we need. What we need, and these people have been elected as well, democratically elected, and sort of they sit there by right. And so I was talking to my wife there, just getting a bit upset on behalf of us older people. Okay, Laura.
Ray's done a little just testing thing. Yes, it does work. It is there. You know, it's there. It is working. Because the panel can't see what I can, so I can see what you can see at home, but the panel can't. So they're flying a little bit blind compared with me. So yeah, it is working. It's going well.
Just sort of a lovely Anne Powell's comment, you have no authority here. So the one thing that I was talking to Barbara about in the break was that sort of Jackie Weaver's authority was the fact that she had control of the participants. She had the control of the mute button, and she could chuck them out. That was her power. I think there's a difference between power and authority. Okay, here we go. We're on our last question. Laura, are we working from home or living from work?
Well, it sort of feels like a mixture of both, doesn't it? I think everybody's just in completely different situations at the moment. I love the saying when people say, oh, well, we're all in the same boat. No, we're not. We're all in the same storm. Some people have a yacht. I think, I mean, from my experience of this most recent lockdown, I mean, the first one was bad enough, but we kind of got through it, and it felt like it wasn't going to be for too long. And now it feels like we're in a stasis. Nothing's moving. We're still just stuck. We get out of bed and we're at work. I don't get dinner breaks now. I used to have a nice dinner break and go to Asda or something, or have a little walk around or sit and watch telly. That doesn't happen anymore, because if I get a break, then it's immediately on to the next lesson with one of the kids, or trying to desperately tidy something so that I don't look like we've lost a game of Jumanji. You know, it's just, there's always something that needs doing. So it is just constant, and you don't get a rest. And if you're anything like the people on this show who have like 10 other things that they do other than work and family, it's just non-stop. And so yeah, I think we're not really living at all, but then we're not really just working either. We're doing it all, and we're doing it too much, and we are not allowed to have any fun, and it's killing us, to be perfectly honest. Like the mental health problems that will come out of this second lockdown will be immense, I think, because it is full on and it is really hard. And anybody who's struggling, who thinks, oh, but people are still putting nice Instagram pictures on, and trust me, everyone is feeling it in one way or another. This is really, really tough going. I mean, I've had had to take time off work. Now, we think it was probably, obviously, you know, I was off the show for a while. It was probably long COVID, but I tell you what, this situation didn't help. This constant bombardment of guilt that you feel because you're not doing good enough at being a mom or a wife or a teacher or all these things that you're not meant to be all the time, you know. So it is hard going. And no, I don't think we're working at home or living at work. I think it's this whole new weird matrix style atmosphere that we're all just trying to now switch off from and just get through the day till it's bedtime, and that's no way to live. So the sooner this is all over, the better, in my eyes anyway.
Sam, are you finding the life being gradually drained from you?
Yeah, I mean, what we all need to appreciate, and everybody in every, you know, we are surviving at the moment. We're in survival mode. Nobody is flourishing at the moment. I have worked from home since almost when Stevie was born. So I've done different things working from home for 8 years, right? So this is not working from home. I've actually had to go to the point where I've bought meal replacement drinks because I don't have enough time to eat, right? That's the situation at the moment, because the only way I can claw some time for myself during the day is to not eat during the day. So I've got, I have for the last few days. I'm trying to move away from that now, because that doesn't sound like a healthy attitude to have. But that's the situation for people who are trying to do all of their things they need to do for their job, for their other roles, and also teach their kids. I've got 3 kids, age 5, 7, and 9. The 7-year-old and the 9-year-old both have additional needs. None of them can do anything independently. So it is surviving. So there's a couple of things. I've got lots of friends who home educate, who are quite annoyed at the idea that people think they're home educating at the moment, where this is not home education. If you were home educating your children, you'd be out at the beach, you'd be out at museums, you'd be out in the library, which is all stuff you can't do at the moment, and help to break up your day in a more healthy way. And similarly, this is not working from home, because if you're working from home, you would usually have childcare or an educational setting to send your kids to, where they would come home after a long and busy day and have restful sleep. That's another thing. The kids aren't getting good sleep because they're not running about as much as they usually do. And, you know, like Laura said, the mental health issues here, you know, it's a ticking time bomb. And the fact that the government don't seem to have put any infrastructure in to support that is really alarming to me.
Thank you. That's really interesting, that what you say about homeschooling. Paul, what's your attitude on this? Sort of what insights have you got to share with us?
I think everyone's is different. Like my experience is different from Laura's, and we live in the same house, you know, so it's different. And what Samantha was saying there is that the kids not burning off energy. Our living room has been a racetrack, you know, like they just leaping from piece of furniture to furniture the entire day. And I'm teaching lessons and I'm like, right, come on, do this little bit of work in between my lessons while I'm teaching my lessons online, and trying to get it in, and trying to get my daughter to do her work for school. And Laura's doing the same thing, and both of us are kind of doing this thing, and then we're getting to the end of the day absolutely knackered and going, we haven't been out in the snow today. We didn't go out and build a snowman today. I don't know, I think maybe our lives are getting away from us a little bit because of what we've done is we've tried to retain the worst bits of society through this lockdown. You've got to do your work. You've got to do your work no matter what. Like if you're a teacher, you've got to be working, work. And why? Really, why? Like, I really care about the lost education for children. I think it's an awful thing in many ways. But it could have been a positive experience. They could have spent some time with the family, actually really, really enjoyed it. And I think during the first lockdown, that was more the case, where people did enjoy one another's company. But then they went, no, we can't have this. We can't have you knowing that the country won't collapse without you constantly working and doing something and checking a box and filling in a form and, you know, telling us what you're doing and checking up on people. And so, you know, if that illusion falls, that's it. That's it. We'll all know. Actually, the country runs quite fine. You know, a lot of what we do is pointless. And I've said this a few times. I've said that about David Graeber's book. A lot of what we do is totally pointless. And I'm not talking about the learning of the children. I'm not talking about teaching children. I'm talking about the box checking that's going on and the different things that really don't matter. And I've said this for years in the classroom. The important thing is what the students learn from the teacher. The important thing is contact time. Yet they're still going down the Marken route, and they were talking about Ofsted coming in and observing lessons. Like, what are Ofsted for? Come on, if they're going to come in and observe an online lesson that we've not been trained for and things like that, they're not for anything. They're for box checking. What are league tables for? What are GCSEs for? GCSEs have just gone. They've just said, right, you just predict the grades. They went, well, we've got all this evidence. We've been doing it at least 3 times a year. Most schools do it 6 times a year or something like that. We've been really like deep data for years and years and years. There's really stressful things. People have lost their jobs over it. You know, like teachers have lost their lives over it, over stress at filling these things in. And when it comes to it, did it matter? No, it wasn't used. It wasn't used. They used an algorithm, and then they just went, oh, well, we're going to have to just do something. I'll just say whatever you say. Say whatever you think, whatever you put in. You know, this is the problem with our society. We are far too ingrained in this ridiculous thing where we're doing these things that really don't matter, and we're ignoring the things that really do matter. So I wanted us to learn from this lockdown, and a year later I don't really feel like we have, but I'll keep banging the drum.
Here's a Barbara Clare. Oh, Barbara, my son is out working on 10% less. My daughter is on furlough on 20% less money. There's 3 children doing schoolwork online. We have not seen any of them for nearly a year. There's the devastation of this lockdown, and that's my wife. I've got a comment to reply to somebody who said, if we're closing the baths and the libraries, surely we could reduce the council tax. No, think about it. The fact is that all the underlying costs need maintaining, and sort of we've lost a huge amount of income because they're closed. If anything, we're lucky that they're remaining open. And of course, the other thing is that the things you can see of what a council does, and in fact, everybody talks about the bins. They're only a tiny bit of council expenditure. 2/3 of the county council expenditure goes on adults and children's social care. 2/3, and you don't see any of it. That's just going on to service provision. Last word, Rochelle. I mean, have you found the life being drained from you, or have you found it a wonderful stimulus to inventivity?
Oh, I try and get my kids involved in what I teach, and sometimes it works really well and sometimes it does not. Like when I'm teaching like art, we were making, like, some of the kids don't have things at home that you would normally have at school, so then I try and think like, right, so they don't have glue, right? PVA glue, right? Did you know you can make glue out of flour and water? So I'm like trying to teach the kids to make glue, or they haven't got paint at home. So I'm thinking like, right, coffee and water, but don't boil the kettle. Like, use cold water. And then I'm like trying to get Mason, like, right, Mason, you go and you do this and for mummy, and I'm trying to use them as like little teaching assistants. And sometimes it's great, and they're like, oh mummy, this is so good. But then when that's going really well, the chat's going mad on this side, and the kids are like, I haven't got any coffee, I haven't got any tea, does it have to be hot water? How long do I leave the tea bag in for? So it's like, so even with the best intentions, you're never going to get a balance. Not at all, never.
Thank you very much indeed. Maybe it's because people have gone home and stopped. How not many comments on chat. Answer the question, Paul. Who did routinely use the chat as a backdrop?
The first Prime Minister ever to routinely use the Union Jack as a backdrop. I can't remember where my source is from this, but I do know it's true. It's like it's something recently I learned, so we'll find out what the source is. David Cameron. David Cameron was the first Prime Minister ever to routinely use the Union Jack as a backdrop. Theresa May upped it, so she about doubled the frequency of it, and Boris Johnson then increased it to 2 behind him. It's a very American thing. So do you know the lectern with the 2 flags behind? It's a very American thing, and it's been resisted for a long time in this country. So basically, someone would probably say that our tradition in Britain is not to do it. Is not to stand in front of the flag. The flag means something else. It isn't a gimmick. It isn't something that you just stand in front of and say, look at me, I'm very proud of the flag because I'm stood. No, it means something else. So if you're proud of the flag, you wouldn't necessarily degrade it to use it as a prop. That has been the British tradition. So actually, putting the flag behind you could be considered to be disrespectful of the flag in some people's eyes.
Thank you.
Someone did say Blair, by the way, as well. Mark Lungley. Someone did say Blair, but yeah, no, it wasn't Blair.
Paul Watson's sharing the difficulties when sort of you're at home with the children and they're used to sort of a different environment. Thank you, Paul. I should know this. Laura, what's the dog called? I should know. Poppy.
Penny.
Penny. Sort of, there you are, Anne. Penny. Okay, Sam, at this point, I should have handed over to you half an hour ago. But in a way, we've sort of taken away half of your job. Are you going? Have you any ideas about how you're going to proceed with your bit of the show?
Well, I mean, it's typical, isn't it? We've upped female participation by 50% and taken 50% of a woman's work away from her.
That's a good thing. Women need to work less hard. They work far too hard as it is.
Yeah, that's true. I wanted to say, actually, it's funny what you said, actually, about people in the same house having a different experience of all of this. So my husband... part of my job is to enable him to work from home in as easy way as possible because he isn't got the proper job in the house that earns the in quotes money. So he's in the corner and I'm trying to keep the kids away from him and I'm the one that's making the lunch most of the time. He's probably gonna tell me off for saying that. He does make the lunch sometimes. So it very different. My husband's experience of lockdown versus my experience of lockdown, and also his employers are doing good things about looking after him and getting meetings together just for them to have a bit of a chat and to check in with each other and stuff, which is very nice. And I hope lots of employers are. The main thing is, I just very much hope that longer term employers, now we've had this experiment where people who are working from home are not losing huge chunks of productivity. In fact, most people who are working from home are more productive. We've had in the comments people saying that they're pleased from working from home because they're not having that commute anymore. In that nice chunk of lockdown in the middle, when the kids were able to go to school, our work-life balance was brilliant because my husband could get up with the kids and get them started getting ready for school. I'd take them to school. He's working in the corner and we've got a little bit of time while they're at school. I just think we open up so many doors for people with disabilities and people with other long-term and chronic illnesses. And from my point of view, I am constantly looking at jobs which I can't access because they're in London. So I really would like some of those jobs to be accessible from the northeast, and also might help with the property price issue in Shildon, if that my lady was very concerned about.
Well, that would reduce the council tax, by the way, if house prices were to wallop up in the northeast, council tax would go down relatively. But what strikes me from what you're saying, Sam, is that the problem isn't lockdown, really. The problem is children.
I said that today. Yesterday, I bumped into our PCSOs on the street, and they said, "How are you doing?" I said, "Well, I am somewhat thinking that having 3 children was a bad choice. It seems a bit excessive now that I've got them with me all the time."
I'm going to make some statement that will get me into trouble. I'm not. I'm going to. Mia. Sorry.
Are you taking my job again?
I am. You should never have let me look at these.
Yes. We'll go for it, John. I tell you what.
No. You.
Okay. Mia says, "I really feel for all of those who are struggling. Unlike a lot of people, my mental health has improved significantly since the lockdown. In the first lockdown, my mental health was really good because my problem is anxiety. And it was so reassuring to know that the world really was in a terrible position and it wasn't just in my head. That was really great." Mental health improved significantly during the lockdown because of social connections I've made, having been agoraphobic and socially isolated for several years. This has been my life for many years, but it just goes to show what society was like before. I've scrolled and I've lost myself. Like before, and a lot of people have struggled for a long time before COVID. There have been cases of people whose mental health has improved because they found new ways to work. And there's a study that Paul mentioned a few months ago where children's anxiety levels dropped since lockdown. If I'm honest, I really hope things don't go back to how they were before lockdown, but the lessons are learned and that we take what has worked better through lockdown as we move to a new normal. All that said, none of that takes away from how hard it is for those who are really struggling, sending everyone my solidarity. Yeah, exactly. And also this thing about remote parliament, I really think MPs should be able to continue to work remotely, because for us, especially in the northeast, you know, if your MP goes down to London every week, they lose 2 days a week to travel in, and that time could be spent in the constituency. And that's what we obviously hear whenever we talk to voters, isn't it? We want our representatives to be here in the community doing things.
I know. I saw.
Bonnie's got my back.
I'm terrified of Bonnie already.
Absolutely, you should be.
We'll have to have her on the show.
Yeah, Vonnie says her MP, that's Richard Holden, seems to be down in London every bloody week. So is my MP. So she just loves that. She's got a very nice flat down there, though. I can tell because I can see her expenses. And we're paying for a lovely flat for her down there.
She popped up on one of my friend's Tinders.
Less said about that, the better.
Said she lives in London. Lives in
Yeah.
London, and she had this she was in front of this window with because he screenshot in front of a window with the London behind her, and she lives in London. It was nothing about Bishop Auckland. She doesn't live in Bishop Auckland. So.
Yeah, let's
not wrong with people going on Tinder, by the way, if they want to.
No,
I'm glad I never
absolutely.
had to. Like generation before that, generation before Tinder.
Sorry, John. What are you saying?
We were sort of talking about the sort of meetings that take place online, but I do not think that Prime Minister's questions is 100% better. Now it's more constrained and online, instead of all that baying and shouting mob thing going on. Do you not think that's improved?
Absolutely, especially for our current Prime Minister, Boris Johnson. He really feeds off the people round the back of him going, go on, Boris, go. And actually, people don't like that. It doesn't. And I just think it's one of those things when people first get into politics, like, so members of the public who don't usually watch the Houses of Parliament, there's a few of them started to watch it recently for different announcements and things, and they are horrified by the way people go on down there. And you're absolutely right. We should, it should be dignified. It's not a football match. This isn't laying down the law of the land. This is important work. And if the MPs aren't going to treat it as dignified and as an important work, why should members of the public respect it? Ugh, gets on my goat. Tim made the point earlier.
There've been some funny comments tonight, like a little bit Samantha obsessed.
Yeah, I think Stephen fancies me.
You've got there's a little obsession going on, which is sweet.
He's a red-blooded man. I can't hold it against him. I am not on Tinder. Don't look. I mean, do look, because I'm sure there's some lovely girls on Tinder. Or boys, whatever. Okay, so...
Are you embarrassed there, Samantha? Have I embarrassed you?
Oh, I've been blushing all night. I was terrified I was going to say something totally stupid about the transgender discussion we had earlier. But mostly, and I'll say this now, the amount of abuse I get from gender critical feminists whenever I talk about this issue is huge. Last time it was about the supporting misogyny as a hate crime, and I literally just promoted the fact that I'd been on a Zoom call with is it Yvette Cooper? Was it Yvette? No, not Yvette Cooper.
Stella Creasy.
Yeah. I've just promoted that, and I got tagged and retweeted by a Twitter account which is its only purpose is to broadcast people who are trans inclusive and get other accounts to attack them. So I had 3 days of having to block people. It was horrendous. And I'm just so angry that these are the same people who will give me grief for shutting down transphobic speakers. You are actually trying to intimidate a woman out of politics, and you call yourself a feminist. Shut up. You are nothing of the sort.
I think it's one of those awful things where I think when you've got one of the groups of people who are the most discriminated against, and statistically this is proven again and again, trans people are discriminated against so badly. It's so awful, and internally, even before they transition, the internal turmoil they must go through, it is not an easy thing. It is not easy, and it's portrayed as this really easy thing that people do to do evil deeds, like it's some sort of weird cartoon from, or like some sort of weird sitcom from the 60s or the 50s or something, where someone dresses up to do something bad. It's so bad the way trans people are represented. Who would do that? Who would go to that level of trouble to do the things that they suggest and that they would do? It's just ridiculous. When you think about it logically, it's ridiculous to think anyone would do. That's not to say there aren't some trans people who do bad things. It's just simply not because they're trans. Yeah. It's like any prejudice. If you're blaming who they are for what they do, that's a prejudice. People can do bad things. It doesn't mean everyone's really brilliant, shiny, happy people. It's just it's not because they're trans, and it's not because they're a certain race or anything.
Rochelle, you mustn't allow yourself to get overwhelmed in this second half by all these people who love hearing the sound of their own voice. So, how have you felt talking about the various issues we've talked about today? Have you felt it a worrying thing, or have you enjoyed the self-expression?
No, I've enjoyed it, definitely. Like, how often do you get a chance to have these types of conversations, like on a larger scale, or like have a platform to talk about things that matter to you? Like, I think it's great. Just get more people on. Just like keep bringing people on. I have like 20 people on at once. I know that wouldn't work, but like,
when we first started, we did have this roll of people coming through, and then that had to stop, and we set upon the kind of team. It's always lovely when we get somebody new on, and sort of, and how likely are you to get elected? I mean, are you likely to be in County Hall? Are you
I've got no idea. I've got no idea.
So you don't know? The people who are there at the moment, are they Labour or are they independent or what?
Town council. There's an independent party currently at the helm, closely followed by Labour, and then but at county, the independent party that are in where I live, they're not represented at county.
Right.
It is really tricky, isn't it? Because how are people going to vote this time round without all of the campaign and without all the leafleting, without the door knocking?
Yeah,
you know, we've got an insurgent independent party in Shildon, and I shouldn't laugh because I respect them as it's their democratic right to stand. But they've set up a political party called Shildon and Dean Valley Independent Party. So, but they are a political party, so they're not independent. Bit of a paradox. But yeah, how are they? Because they need to get their word out. And how are they going to do that without leaflets and without door knocking? It's just Facebook. Is the demographic that's on Facebook the same as the demographic that vote? I don't think it is. So
sorry.
No, Rochelle.
Yeah, go for it.
You know what? It was more of a question than a thought. So all of those people that run these independent parties, like I'm part of my party, the parties Durham County Council, it's a national party, but all of these independent parties, who holds them accountable when they do leaflet drop or when they do something they shouldn't? Who is the overarching person that holds those people accountable? Because I don't actually know the answer to that.
Well, exactly. It has been explicitly said now as part of the guidance that you shouldn't be doing it. You can pay somebody else to deliver leaflets for you. You can have leaflets delivered by the post in the post, but you can't have volunteers from political parties delivering leaflets. So it would be like an issue for the police to follow up.
Really?
Yeah. And definitely it would be a very bad thing for them because it would create bad publicity. And we all know negativity travels a lot faster than positivity. So you may say no, all publicity is good publicity, but I don't know whether that's the case.
There are some comments about this, Sam, aren't there?
Chris says the Electoral Commission. I'm not sure. Not in terms of the COVID stuff. The Electoral Commission would hold them accountable if they lied, if they did illegal things like not accounting for the money that they have spent in campaigning. But you do make a really good point, Rochelle, about the accountability for independent councillors. You know, you've got I won't even mention her name, you've got a very vocal town councillor in Aycliffe who is famous for spreading COVID misinformation. If she was in the Labour Party, we would have been able to sanction her and discipline her internally for that kind of misconduct. But because she's an independent councillor, you know, you can't actually be removed as a councillor unless you do something really badly illegal, and usually something to do with fraud. And I think people who I've tried to explain that to don't understand why you could not be removed from being a councillor for comparing people going for a COVID vaccination to the Nazi concentration camps. But there you go. You're legally allowed to do that. Chris says he knows, so I believe him. The Electoral Commission would hold these people accountable for that kind of thing. Vonnie says the electorate would hold people accountable. Well, we will see. We hopefully will see.
One of the things that often I say, Rochelle, is that the Labour Party candidates fight with their hands tied behind their back in a way that other people do not seem to. We have to jump through hoops to be selected, and then sort of we are encouraged firmly to play absolutely ethically, and sort of course the independents, they're accountable only to themselves. They decide one day that they want to get elected, they get necessary, and off they go. And it just seems sometimes that they say the most horrific things in a way that sort of we're continually sending this up and sort of saying, is this all right? Can I say this? It's quite difficult actually when you're a Labour Party candidate abiding by the rules. I don't know whether sort of Sam, have you found that?
Yeah, I mean, it's not been horrendously difficult for me because the rules align with my morality, but it has been difficult recently. Oh, thanks, Chris. You're a great member pioneer coordinator as well.
Just to say, we've got people tuning in from Pakistan at the moment, so that's quite nice.
Wow. Oh, yeah, that's great. We've got a current drama at the moment. One of our councillors is has resigned from the Labour Party and has gone into the papers and given them statements about it. That's difficult because I want to tell people the truth about what happened, but I do not want to dwell on it, and I would like to get on with winning the election and not let this person make it all about her, because it's not. Those things are really difficult. I had somebody being really awful to me the other day, and I just wanted to tell him to go away. And I just thought, no, because that is giving them ammunition and they will use it against you, and it's better to just, well, that's your opinion and I've got mine. And so yes, so it can be difficult in those times, but also what you get for it is you are part of a winning team, hopefully, and you've got people who support you. You know, I had our MP's office manager refer to me as just a town councillor the other day, and I wanted to reply, actually, I'm not just a town councillor. I'm hundreds of thousands of members. I am hundreds of county councillors, because we work as a team, and that's the real strength of being in a party, which can't be underestimated when it works.
Last few minutes of comments. Let's go. Come on, if you want to do a comment for the last few minutes, here's the time to get your questions answered.
Yeah, Adam Smith said there is actually a word for the process of creating arcane language to as a political tool, and I cannot pronounce it. Go and look that. Sam, what's happening with the train that belongs in Shildon but is in Darlington? It's coming home. It's coming home. It's coming. Now, again, professional. The situation is Locomotion number 1 belongs to the National Collection, and Locomotion Museum is a National Railway Museum. It's very, very common for museums to loan things to other museums for a very long time, and that is what has happened in legal terms with Locomotion number 1. We are getting a brand new building in Shildon, which will mean that we actually will have the largest collection of engines in Europe in Shildon. So that's really great. It's going to have a lovely home here. Locomotion number 1 set off from Shildon to start the Stockton and Darlington Railway. So it's a lovely story. It's very difficult because Darlington do not want to let us have it back, which is a shame. But just because you don't want something.
Remen has asked us about our schedule. Rochelle did a lovely schedule for us. You watch it on YouTube at the moment, so you should be able to find it in our videos. It should be pinned to the top of our page, our February schedule. So that might change every month, but it might not. You know, we're going to try and be quite consistent, but we go out on Saturday. Everything's Greenwich Mean Time. We go out on Saturday 8 o'clock, Saturday 9 o'clock. For many hours, and we go out on Tuesday 8 o'clock, and we go out on Thursday at 8 o'clock as well, and little videos in between to keep you going. Is that right, Rochelle? Is that right, Laura? Is that right? Laura, you haven't spoken for absolutely ages.
Yep.
Leanne says, have we done our reading for the political education Sunday school? I had Paul read it to me while I was running. Do you want to mention that, Paul?
I think Laura can talk about the editing experience of that one.
Oh yeah, okay. So look up the political education project to begin with. It's going to be amazing. It's a 10-week course designed to just give people a bit more knowledge, and so they give little readings. Well, I say little readings. They choose different readings for each session, and the first session is on Sunday, and there are 2 readings. If you're anything like me, I'm not too proud to say, if you gave me that piece of written down on a piece of paper, there's not a chance I would have been able to read it. So Paul has committed it to podcast for you, which you can find on our website. Much easier to digest. You can do it while you're busy doing other stuff, because let's face it, we're all busy doing other stuff. So yeah, have a listen to that. Sign up to the Political Education Project's website, get the link and join in. It should be really interesting.
I think is the first thing. It's Sunday, isn't it? Is the first meeting where we get together and speak about it. And the whole idea is, doesn't matter what your education level is. It doesn't matter what job you do. It doesn't matter, what your background is. You will not be frowned upon. And we've got some really good shows that you can watch back on, which is from Saturday, where we had Laura Smith and Paul O'Connell, who were part of that project. Laura Smith, the former MP, and they explained what it's about, and it's definitely the least snobby piece of education I have ever seen in my life, even if the reading's hard. And I did the podcast reading, and I found the names hard. I found it hard. I sometimes didn't know what I was saying. I didn't understand the words I was reading. But I think the important thing is, just feel free to ask, and I think that's the whole atmosphere of the Political Education Project, so definitely sign up.
And there was another comment, and we probably should wind up, but there was a comment I'll pick up from Musa, actually. He said, what support do councillors receive from council officers to deal with all the stress they have to face in carrying out their duties? Now, I mean, that is a huge thing. I will say that the staff at Sheldon Town Council are brilliant, and they will always listen, and they will always try and help. But the technology has sort of leapfrogged a lot of people, so the practical support they can offer is minimal, and there is so little out there in terms of helping. Like the problem is so not understood, so there's very, very little out there. I joined an organisation called Glitch for some online training last week, and that was specifically for women in politics. It was very good, and I will link it in the comments when I've finished. But even then, the problem is the platforms, because I've got lots of ongoing things with Charlton-Laine for whatever reason. and people keep telling me, oh, well, you can trace their IP addresses and the police can get their information. It's just not the case. It's just not the case, because in order for you to get their information, you've got to have a court order. They can't, or they won't just give you IP addresses. And even then, when you have that, you're using UK law to try and force an American company to do something. It's not straightforward at all. What I would say, everybody who is out there at the moment, you all need to be active bystanders. If you see somebody doing something that is abusive to anyone, whether they're a counsellor or not, you need to report that comment to the platform that it's on and put something supportive to say, I see this, I'm with you, so they're not bogged down by what can be an avalanche of hate at times. That really helps. I'll link me there. Anybody else want to pick anything up before we shut off?
Just a big thank you, I would say, to everyone who's watched, and don't forget to give us a like and give us a share and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and subscribe to follow us on Twitter, follow us on Facebook, and actually like us on Facebook. That's the one, isn't it? And we do have an optional donate button. Laura's looking at me going, yep, you should say that, and so is Rochelle. you should say that, and I'm so like, oh no, please don't say that.
So bad at it. Just to keep
that.
us going, we're not going to spend it on beer.
No, we'll spend it on all the things we've been spending things on between the four of us. But but yeah, it's been so good to have so many people getting involved, and please do continue to come back. It's been class. Oh, John, you muted.
Oh, has he unplugged his mic? This is my matriarchal supremacy again. I've stolen his voice.
How's this? Are we okay?
That's perfect, John. Perfect.
Can we just say thank you to Rochelle for standing so ably for Stuart. And
also for the graphics. Rochelle does the graphics for the show, and I think we look really good, really good for a little 4-person team of people who do the background work. Obviously, you've got the stars of the show, John and Samantha as well, but the background workers, we're looking quite slick now, aren't we? I think.
It looks good.
Better when
I put it on my phone. It looks really good.
Did it look better on the transparent thing, the comments thing? Did that look better when it was transparent? I think so. I had to do something there. Live directing there.
Like a little TV program.
Just thank you, Rochelle. That's it's been brilliant, and Paul's right. This live stream chat function, the way it looks on the screen, unbelievably good. Thank you very much indeed. Samantha, I'll let you say goodbye, and thank you, team. You're just brilliant every week. I'm in awe of you. Thank you so very much. And Samantha will say goodbye.
Goodbye, everybody.
See you next time. Also, listen to our podcasts.